Hello there, Gentleman Joe here, coming at you with our first Gunpla review. This is the high-grade Universal Century Nightingale. If you've ever wanted to drop an asteroid onto Earth, tell me why below in the comments. Today we will be going over the high-grade Universal Century Nightingale in all of its glory. We'll be going over the build, the lineage, and I'll basically be giving you my full review of this kit here. If you hear some loud, kind of streaky noises, I apologize. This is quite a hefty kit, and sometimes moving it will have like a little squeak here and there, so I do apologize beforehand. Let's go over the lineage of the Nightingale. The Nightingale is kind of an optional suit for Char Aznable, the Red Comet. If you're a fan of Gundam, you know about Char's counterattack, most likely. It's the culmination of Amuro and Char's rivalry, ending with the Axis asteroid being dropped onto Earth, and Amuro saving it through new type magic with the new Gundam and the Psycho Frame. That story was originally penned as a novel called High Streamer. High Streamer was then turned into Char's counterattack after Bandai gave Tomino the okay to make the movie. This was the first full-length Gundam movie. Tomino, not fully satisfied with what some of the sponsors made him do for the film, as in not bringing back Beltachika from Zeta Gundam and making Amuro a family man, he decided to pen kind of a third incarnation of the story called Char's Counterattack, Beltachika's Children, which features the Nightingale as Char's suit rather than the Sazabi, as well as High New Gundam for Amuro rather than just the typical new Gundam. I've never read the book, but from what I can tell, the story basically ends the same, with Amuro and Char turning into new type ghosts and haunting space for the rest of eternity. So let's talk about the Nightingale kit itself. If I did just a straight build of this kit, straight out of the box, snapped together, it probably would have taken me about 2 hours, including cutting out, nub removal, sanding, all that. It's a pretty quick kit, and I think that is because some of the pieces are incredibly large. We have some really large wing binders here that are one piece, and we have an incredibly large abdomen piece here as well. These are all one piece. You don't have to do much to them. In fact, it's just this, the underside, and you're basically done. The fitment of all pieces is very good. There's not much that you really get kind of caught up on. The one thing I got caught up on while building this kit was this under abdomen section. The gray up here, which we can't really see because it's underneath these booster pods, so let me lift these up. This gray portion down here did not like fitting into the red piece. And that's just because it's such a large piece. Sometimes the pegs of fitment can kind of, let's just say all three of these are going in their spot and these two are hitting. And if you try to press down, you're going to get some plastic scarring there. That's kind of the best analogy and way I can show what happened. But that only happened once and that was a quick fix. But, if I was all gung-ho and trying to force it, I could have easily broken something. The plastic quality is what we would expect from a new Bandai high-grade kit. It was very easy to work with. It's a high-grade plastic. I didn't think I was really going to break anything, so I didn't really have to worry too much about that. It's not super fragile either, and we do have some thick pieces. This red piece up here is relatively thick, and these are relatively thin. What I had a hard time with these wing binders was cutting it out because the mold, the gate is molded right here. So for those people that use God hand nippers, where you have to kind of hit on a flat edge, it's a little hard to get that. So it's probably better to just cut it off the gate and then get the rest with a hobby knife. I do have a big, chunky plastic scar. Let me see if I can get that on camera. I have a large plastic scar right there. You can kind of see it. So that's why it's relegated to the back of the Nightingale. In terms of color correcting stickers, we have this sheet here. There are some black pieces, some more black pieces, and 2 sensors. One is for the machine gun, the other one is for the mono eye. We have these 4 yellow sheets here. And because I didn't really have the chance to mix the yellows, I just used them, which I typically don't do. And those go up here in the abdomen section. And it looks kinda okay. You can see the seam line there, which I'm not super thrilled about, but once it's sitting flat, you can't really notice it too bad. Mixing paint is still something I'm not super comfortable with, but typically when I build a kit, I prefer to use paint rather than color correcting stickers. But for a kit this large, to only have to use 4, the other we can get with panel lining pens and small dabs of, green paint, I'd say that's pretty good. It is also included with some Neo Zeon stickers. We have Char's crest here, a Neo Zeon insignia, and then a lot of Neo Zeon bird type insignias. These red stickers down here, these are for the boosters. It goes on the end here. I have just been too lazy to put them on, and I'm waiting for a water slide sheet from Delpy. So for me, this kit isn't technically done. It's snapped together, but it's not got my Gentleman Joe finishing touches. Next, we will be going over the articulation. So here we have the Nightingale in all of its glory. It is quite a behemoth of a kit. So let's talk about articulation now. Let's talk about articulation. So here, the articulation, let's start at the bottom, let's start at the feet. The feet can move like this, and we can get some nice movement out of the foot. So let's just say we're on an action base here. We can move the foot forward, and this skirt moves forward. It goes about this far forward and this far backwards. It can come out a little bit and it can come in a little bit. The foot itself, we have a little bit of a wiggle here and there, so we can really get like a nice boosting, taking off pose here like that. As I'm sure you noticed, this armor piece can move up and down. This is kind of nice for, let's just say Nightingale's moving forward for an attack. So we move the foot back and we can get this kind of pose here, where it looks like Nightingale's moving forward, ready to attack Amuro. We do have a little bit of knee articulation. Took a side skirt off so you could take a look. And it can articulate quite a lot, which is very surprising given the size of this kit. I mean, this kit, they engineered this really, really well. You can see how good of a crunch that is given the size of this unit itself. And it's a stiff joint too, so I don't think we really have to worry about that joint ever getting droopy. Not for a long, long time anyways. Continuing with the underneath, these propellant pods have articulation. Can move left and right and up and down quite a bit. And there's these little pegs here so you can put them into place. This little foot has articulation and it can also slide off. This is just there to kind of hold this beast up as it stands, because if not, it has a tendency to move back. Although right now it's balancing itself pretty well. But I'm sure that would wear the joints out quite a lot. And it just slides in and out like that. Next, these side skirts, they have articulation. They go out and then they fall off. So this is honestly, these side skirts, it's probably the weakest link on this kit to be honest with you. You basically have to look at them and they fall off. So we're just gonna put these puppies back on. But any type of movement, they're guaranteed to pop off. So, something that this has that the RE100 doesn't have is articulation of the sub-arms. As you can see here, there is a sub-arm attached, and this, let me see if I can get a good angle on it. Not really. It's got a little peg that it sits into and then slides out from. This sub-arm can move up and down. You could stop it halfway up the track if you really wanted to, but if you do this, it does have a tendency to slide down, and it will rotate 360 here. And then we have some up and down movement there, both 90. And then this little arm, the hand itself, the hand can 360 and move all sorts of different directions. There are sub-arms underneath both skirts, but we're just gonna leave this one out for now. So that brings us up to the waist. Does the waist have articulation? Do we really anticipate a kit of this size and stature to have articulation in the waist? And I have great news for you. It surprisingly does. Like, that is a full 180, and we can come back and do it to the other side. We could probably even get a... Look at that! Check that out. We got a 360 here, folks. Which is incredible, because usually you would think something of this size, with all this heavy plastic on this one joint, it's not going to want to move at all. Now, chances are, over time, you're probably not going to want to move it, because, let's take a look here. As you can see here, it is solely on one peg. I would be remiss to say that this is going to last the test of time. There was a lot of resistance wanting to move it. So I'd wager that eventually, either too much use or if it's giving you too much resistance, I wouldn't move it. Because we don't want this to snap. If this snaps, then we do really have a statue here on our hands. So we're going to put this back together. But that being said, it can move. Maybe if we sand down the sides of the peg, it will move a little looser. It will be looser in the middle, but it may be able to move looser and we won't have to worry about that joint snapping. But that is one thing I'm gonna be kind of very, very leery on with this kit moving forward with my displays and its poses, is just that joint in the middle. I don't want that to break. So here, before we get into the arms, we're just gonna get these out of the way. The pauldrons can move up and down. There's a peg here that prevents them from moving any further down, so they go up and down. And we're just gonna leave them up for the arm articulation. The arm can move up, and it can rotate 360. Very nice. The shoulder can come down, and kind of go a little bit about 90. We do have a forward gimmick here. The arm can move forward, so we do get quite a good pull forward with the Nightingale itself. We've got a nice bicep curl. Little bit more than 90 degrees. That's a pretty good curl there. And we can rotate at this joint as well. Just be careful, you don't want to break nothing. And the way this looks too is that it's got this kind of real spacey type of material rather than a typical MS joint, and it doesn't even look like that's where the joint is. So they did a very good job. Like, we obviously can see the swivel joint here, but the curl joint is kind of like a mixture of everything. It's like a joint at the elbow and a little bit in the back of the bicep. So it does look very, very good. The hand does everything, does 360, little wiggle there. So that's pretty good. We're just gonna put this down. Right arm, same exact thing. The pauldrons don't get too much in the way. Like if we start rotating everything, like they can just be pushed right out of the way, and we have a direct 90 there. So realistically, the articulation on the arms is incredible. It's really, really good. Yep. Now before we go to the wing binders, these things have articulation. They can move in all sorts of directions. You know, let's just say we're doing like a spin move. We can set it this way so it looks like the Nightingale's going like this. It's got a little bit of swooshability, as the Lego people would say. You can swoosh kind of thing. That's what they use for terms. Swooshability. What's the swooshability of the model? So here we have the wing binders. These can kind of 360. These joints, I don't want to say I'm disappointed in the joints, because I'm not. It's just a little precarious, and it's going to be hard to get this on camera, but we're going to try. So as I try to move this thing 360, we have like a piece right here on the torso that prevents us from making a full 360. So we can't do a full 360, but here the joint has articulation on the inside of the wing as well as here. So as it fights itself, it like kind of binds and articulates on itself. I'm not sure if it would be better if they just put like one point of articulation on the wing. I'm not sure, but it kind of does bind in on itself, and you can see how sometimes there'll be more of a gap up here than down there as it binds. It's really bizarre, kind of how it does its thing. As you can see, I'm kind of turning it now, so now it's kind of canted to the rear, and now it's canted forward, so it's like a little bit of like I want to say L shape for articulation there. The wing binders can move backwards, so here they are straight, and here they are fully articulated back. We have basically no articulation forward, which is fine. We don't really anticipate that, but they can move up quite a bit. And they can go down almost all the way. So up and down, and then if we spin them back, they can collapse. And now we have a little bit more of a sleeker, maybe the Nightingale's in its hangar kind of thing, and it doesn't need its wings fully deployed. And here, if you look here, you can notice that the joint is all the way backwards, and this is collapsed. So that's the real reason for the L-shaped joint. It's just a little bizarre and kind of does bind in on itself. And lastly, the last piece of articulation we're going to be talking about is up here with the head. The head is on a swivel forward joint. So let me move this forward, take this pauldron off so you can view it better. So this is where the head sits at rest. Now if we take it, we can move it forward, and now it is up a little bit, and we can move it basically 180. It has a surprising amount of articulation. The one thing that really kind of stops it is this cheek spike here. The cheek spike is kind of the one thing that limits the articulation, but you know, with a mobile suit this large, we don't need much articulation. The head also opens up. Sorry, my hand was in the way. And this is how we spin the mono eye with your fingernail or a screwdriver or something. The mono eye can spin, and if you look really closely, you'll notice the escape pod is here. I had to color that red myself, and this can open up, probably just for the articulation for the mono eye. And a little bit of detailing in there for the tubes and vents and whatnot. So we've gone over the articulation for the Nightingale, and given the size of this unit, it has got some very good, very, very good articulation. This unit is a unit. Can even open up a little mega particle beam cannon that I forgot about. So what does the Nightingale come with for accessories? We've got the beam machine gun here, which has a little bit more articulation with the bipod. Now the bipod does like to kind of pop off from time to time. Now let's give him his arms. The Nightingale is surprisingly strong. Now, if these joints are going to stand to the test of time, that's a different story. As you can see here, the Nightingale is very strong and can hold the beam machine gun no problem whatsoever. Can also give it the typical Terminator pose. But what else does the Nightingale come with? Well, the Nightingale comes with a shield. I'm missing the Xeon emblem because I'm waiting on my water slides. And that just fits into this peg here. No problem. And we have some rockets here. So Char Aznable's really, he's really ready to take on Amuro and Londo Bell. We also get a beam tomahawk. Which is quite large. I almost wish that this kit had a forward arm, kind of like we got with the real grade Tall Geese. That way it can look a little more useful. In addition to these beam effects, we also just have two standard Tomahawk beam effects which go in, so you can have a double-bladed battle axe or a single. But my favorite is probably the all-in-one, where we have both the saber, the tomahawk, everything fully ready to go to war for Neo Zeon. I don't typically pose my units with the beam sabers unless that's kind of more their designation, so he will be getting his smart gun when he goes on the shelf. But not only do we get two typical beam sabers, we also get two sabers for the subarms. Kind of harkening back to Paptimus Scirocco with the O. And with the amount of articulation that we get in these subarms, the world really is our oyster. This is quite a menacing looking kit. This Nemo, he's not going to stand a chance. He's going to get absolutely decimated. Gone. Just, give up. Dead. Gone. But for me, personally, I just love this menacingly huge machine gun. I think the machine gun really sells the kit. I think, if I'm really being honest here, I think the bipod's really goofy. I don't think there's no reason to have a bipod in space, as things have no weight in space. So bipod, there's really no reason for you to deploy a bipod so you can control recoil. It looks cool, but man, is it really goofy. And finally, we get 2 closed fists and 1 open hand, which I will be using to hold the beam machine gun, which I didn't anticipate this would have that articulation to do that. Now I don't think it can hold it super. Let's get the shield out of the way. It's getting in the way of things. I mean, look at that. Char is ready to take out his little buddy Amuro. So here we have the Nightingale directly next to its contemporaries. As we can see, the real grade Sazabi seems a little scotch taller, but these wing binders kind of make up for it. And here we have the high grade Universal Century, high new Gundam, which is absolutely shorter than the Nightingale. As I'm sure you've noticed, for me, this wasn't a straight out of the box build. I did add a lot of color detailing. As you can see, this inner frame here I did in silver just with a Sharpie metallic marker. Some brass pieces were done with Tamiya brass enamel. All this detailing down here, other than the brass, so we have some brass tubes here. That was done with paint, but this silvering, this was all done with Sharpie metallic silver. Here we can see I did these rivets in brass, and underneath the track has been silverized. We have some brass detailing here, and some of these gray panels I did with a gray enamel. The subarm also has this metallic detailing in here that I added with a brush, which took a very quick amount of time. It's very, very easy. The beam machine gun has this giant brass hose on top, and I did some of the piping on it in black. Here on the inside of the torso I did some more gray and brass detailing, as well as underneath with the wing binders. And you can see how the panel line really brings out a lot of detailing underneath in those boosters. The head I also added some gray and some brass piping, and I'm sure you saw, but I did the same under here. So as you can see here, the MSN 042 Nightingale is an incredibly imposing kit. It is large, it's going to take up a lot of shelf presence, and it really doesn't mess around. For the $85 US, that it's supposed to be, you get quite a lot of accessories, quite a lot of poseability, and an incredibly large amount of articulation for a kit this size. We had a kit close to this size, if not a little bit bigger, with the Penelope, but the Penelope kind of turned more into a statue. Of course, the Odysseus Gundam within it had great articulation, but once all the full flight armor was added, it was nothing more than a statue on a stand. With the Nightingale, you can make almost any pose you could realistically think of. That, coupled with the amount of detailing, I really can't find a lot to dock this kit on. The probably worst aspects is the side skirts pop off, the boosters pop off, that joint in the middle is kind of suspect, and I wouldn't really move the joint in the waist too much. And the wings do tend to bind, wing binder, pun not intended. And I would be curious to see the longevity of the joints on this kit. But other than that, this kit is absolutely phenomenal. And for me, to kind of complete Char's legacy, I have every other suit that he's had other than this one. I would say that this is fully worth the $85, especially if you think about the amount of detailing you could do. If you're into scribing, this would be a great kit to start scribing on, and you could really add some even more details to this kit if that's something you're into. But even straight out of the box, this is a large, imposing unit, especially for your mass production type kits like the Nemo or Jims. This kit is ready to take on your whole army of Leos that you bought from Hobby Lobby. It's hard to think of a kit this big and not immediately think of a statue, and that's why I'm so blown away with this kit, because it's not a statue. We can do almost anything we want with this kit. It's quick, easy build, but it's easy to panel line, it's easy to add details, it's easy to have a nice, great showpiece in the center of your collection. So I am very confident giving this a high 8 or even a low 9. I want to thank you for tuning in to my first Gunpla review. This has been a long time coming, and I'm really happy I started with the Nightingale. Stay tuned for the speed build of the Nightingale, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.